Well, the Committee for Constructive Tomorrow is stepping up again, and the conversation today are these controversial offshore wind projects, these turbines. I mean, these are so complicated to build on land. Then you try to put them in, out in the ocean. You know what salt water does to these things, of course. Craig Rucker is a co-founder of CFAC, currently serves as its president. He joins me now. Craig, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, besides the fact that they're very inefficient in creating baseload electricity, wind turbines are also being blamed now for the deaths of right whales, among other marine mammals. But the right whales specifically, of which there are only about 300 believed to be on the planet, they're very close to extinction. And apparently this has killed a bunch of them because the noise, the sound that these things create in the water really damages the whale's ability to communicate, to hear, to think, I would guess. What can you tell me?
Yeah, well, they've known for some time that there seems to be a precipitous rise of whale deaths and other marine mammals too, dolphins, sea tortoises, other things, every time they put these things in. This was noticed by President Trump when he was campaigning last fall, and pledged that when he won and came into power, that he would do something about it. And it didn't take him long to do that. In fact, on day one, he actually issued an executive order to freeze all leasing of offshore wind sites on the outer continental shelf. That's about 10 miles to 200 miles off our coast. And asked the Department of Interior and National Marine Fisheries to do a redo on the environmental impacts that windmills have on sea animals, sea tortoises. But there's a whole host of reasons to be opposed to these. You have beach communities that can be impacted. We had a blade, for example, shatter off Nantucket last year in a vineyard wind project, and it actually closed the entire beach for an entire week. And those who were tourists had to wear special shoes in order not to get shards in their feet. These are plastic fiberglass things. They couldn't swim. So this could impact coastal communities.
How lovely. I mean, here we are saving the environment. In Michigan, by the way, they have this grand plan to bulldoze state forests to put in solar panels. I mean, it's about as smart as what you're describing. Stupidity when it comes to green energy and the Green New Deal has no limits. No constraints of stupidity. Maryland Governor Wes Moore, he wants to run for president. No secret. He's challenging Donald Trump on these offshore wind turbines. And what's weird to me, Craig, is that I thought the people on the left were the people that liked bunnies and trees and green stuff. And yet they can keep conducting themselves as if bulldozing state forests is a good idea because that improves the environment, please. That putting these turbines out in the ocean is somehow good for the environment. I mean, it's obviously not true. Not to mention the turbines are made from fossil fuels, from hydrocarbons, right? All of these things. Why are they so enamored? Why will they just refuse to admit, hey, you're wrong about all of these things? Why the reluctance and inability to tell the truth and say, hey, we were wrong about this?
Well, I think it all stems from climate alarmism. I think Biden, as well as Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, buy into what AOC said a while back, that the world has about 10 years to survive, and then we're all going to die from climate change. So if a few dumb whales have to get killed along the way in order to stop us from a planetary apocalypse, then whatever price has to be paid. At least that's the rationale they go by. In truth, I'm a little more cynical than that. I think there's a lot of money involved in these things. You have tremendous sums of dollars coming from the Inflation Reduction Act that was headed toward green projects. Biden, under his administration, sent to Maryland, for example, $15 billion a year for green infrastructure. So I think a lot of his tie to these windmills has to do with money. Now, of course, Trump's going to cut that off. Interestingly, the very companies that Wes Moore is depending on to get these wind farms in, his Skipjack Wind Project, is Ørsted. And Ørsted just pulled out. They went on a freeze, as did BP after President Trump's thing. And his governor north of him in New Jersey, Phil Murphy, just yesterday said he's putting a freeze on all offshore wind. So really, Wes Moore and some of these governors that are trying to push for this are marching to the beat of their own drummer. They're going against the tide, and I think it's gonna backfire on them tremendously.
Well, I think that's true. By the way, I had to go back and check just now while you were explaining that. AOC said 12 years to live if we didn't get our act together on climate change. That was 6 years ago. We're halfway to dead there, Craig. We're halfway to dead this morning already. It's 12 years because that'd be 2030 or 2031. You split the difference, doesn't matter. We're 6 years on. And look, it's snowing in Michigan. I guess we have a word for that around here, Craig. It's called winter. Happens every year. Strangest damn thing, isn't it?
Well, they have this long history of bad records. I got into this issue back in '88, and I remember them saying that New York City would be flooded by 2000. We'd lose the polls by the year 2012. So you be in this debate long enough, and you see these deadlines come and go, but it's kind of like nobody takes notice. So then the new person comes in like AOC and says, we got till 2030. I have a feeling we're all going to wake up in 2030, be
Al
fine.
Gore, John Kerry, AOC. Obviously, it's not about climate change. It's not about saving the planet. It's about putting money in their pockets so they can fly jets and tell us to ride a mule. Except that's probably animal cruelty. Craig, I'll give you the last word.
Well, as I say, I think President Trump has been a godsend as far as this whole issue goes, both those on the left and right. And by the way, it's not just conservatives and Republicans. There are a lot of Democrats, animal rights people, and others who are upset by offshore wind farms. So I think President Trump is actually listening to the people. There's been a lot of protests. And I think that the best days of offshore wind and many of these wind projects is behind them. Hopefully, we'll move on to real energy that can power us into the future.
All right. Craig, I appreciate you being here. We need to power ourselves in the future. We do need to protect the right whale, if at all possible. There's only, like I said, 200 to 300 left. Nobody can't really go out and say how many are there. Raise your hands, but best guess 200 to 300. We should look out for those friends of ours, and they really are. I'm a conservationist. I believe they should be here. Craig Rucker, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Always a pleasure.
I greatly appreciate you. All right, we'll take a break and be back. We'll check in on sports with Brock around the corner.